Welcome to Recently Logged, where anyone can be anything. Probably.
Hello.
Hi.
Here we are.
Yet again.
I'm Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And together we host and make Recently Logged, a movie podcast.
Wow.
Who'd have thunk it? And this week we're talking about a specific movie.
Yep.
Made by a specific company called Disney.
Probably never heard of them.
Probably never heard of them.
They're pretty small.
But they made a little movie back in 2016, and it's called Zootopia.
Wow.
And we're going to talk about it, even though I don't think anyone's really thought about this since, like, I don't know, like 2 years ago.
Zootopia has a huge fan
It does. It's true. I mean, like, general populace, like, obviously Zootopia left a pretty big, like, fan base and like a pretty big impact on movies in general, I think. Well, at least animated movies. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm saying the general populace hasn't really.
How do you know? How do you know what the general populace is up to, Robbie?
I'm saying I haven't really
Zootopia Plus, Robbie? You ever heard of it?
Well, no, I was going to say since like a couple years ago.
No. And you're like, oh, nobody's thinking about it. People were in anticipation for Zootopia Plus.
I was in anticipation.
No, you weren't. You're like, oh, I don't like Zootopia.
But I didn't end up watching it yet. I still want to see it.
See, there you go. So it doesn't even, it's irrelevant, and you don't know what the general populace is up to.
I apologize for assuming the general populace doesn't remember or care about Zootopia when they clearly do.
See, I don't know, Robbie. That seems like a weird take when most people I know really like Zootopia.
Well, yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, I don't see a lot of people, like, discussing Zootopia generally.
I see a lot of people discussing Kung Fu Panda, you know?
I would say the same thing, roughly, about...
Oh, you'd say people have forgotten about Kung Fu Panda?
I wasn't saying Zootopia is forgotten. I'm saying that it's, like, just generally not talked about, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's not what you said.
But yes, we're talking about Zootopia today.
Yep.
for the sake of the general populace, I suppose.
Let's get into what you need to know about it. Alright, so Zootopia is a 2016 movie rated PG. It's an hour and 48 minutes. Its little IMDb description is, in a city of anthropomorphic animals, a rookie bunny cop and a cynical con artist fox must work together to uncover a conspiracy.
A conspiracy?
A conspiracy. Exactly. Its cast features Ginnifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman, Idris Elba, Jenny Slate, Nate Torrence, Bonnie Hunt, and more.
What a lineup of vocal cast.
It is directed by Brian Howard and Rich Moore and co-directed by Jared Bush.
Yes. Very true.
Written by Brian Howard and Rich Moore.
Cool.
They won an Oscar.
Won an Oscar?
Won Best Animated Feature Film. It was yeah. I don't know what it was up against that year.
I don't know, 2016, there was probably something else good that year, I would think.
The score, if I'm not mistaken, is...
someone we know? Someone you know?
Yes, it was, wasn't it a Giacchino score? Yes.
Yes.
I was about to say, I can't find it, but here it is.
Yeah.
And apparently, it also has David Diggs marked as one of the composers.
Nice.
I don't know what he was up to.
I don't know, maybe he produced the Shakira song or something. I don't know.
I don't know, the same cinematographer worked on this as Ralph Breaks the Internet. Nathan Warner.
I hate to break it to him, but this is a much better shot movie than Ralph Breaks the Internet.
But yeah, there's not too much else you need to know. It's pretty simple. It's a Disney movie, you know?
I mean, it's a Disney animated feature if you're familiar with how they make stuff.
In their 3D era.
Pretty standard, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go ahead and get into what we thought of it.
Let's do that. So, Robbie, what do
Yes.
you think, Mr. Everybody's forgotten about Zootopia?
That was not.
The Zootopia is not in the public conscious.
That was not meant to be the takeaway.
What do you think of Zootopia?
I think it's a fun movie. That's what I say.
Wow.
I don't know. It's a weird era. Same thing with like Moana, which came out the same year as this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Where it was like right as I was kind of exiting childhood, when this movie came out. So I have like a weird relationship with it in my memory, where I'm like, oh yeah, that was a pretty good movie, and then I just kind of like didn't think about it after that because I was like discovering new types of movies that I hadn't seen before.
What new types of movies were you discovering in 2016, Robbie? I was there.
I was there. I don't know. Like
watching Inception again.
Yeah, like Inception and like watching Star Wars, watching the Jurassic Park movies, that kind of thing. I was occupied with other stuff, Micah. And I don't know, Zootopia I have fond memories of, but I think it's kind of soured in like since watching it like in 2016, obviously. I don't know. I can't really point to like any one reason, but I wonder if it's just like weird nostalgia that has kind of warped my perception of it, or if I didn't like it that much to begin with. I don't know. But I think generally it's a enjoyable movie. The central like duo of Judy and Nick, I was blanking on their names for some reason. I was gonna say they're actually one of the more memorable like children's movie leads in my memory, really. Great vocal performances. The movie looks great even now, even though I mean it's not like that old, obviously.
Yeah, but you mentioned while we were watching it, and I think this is kind of interesting that it almost like looks better theoretically than like Pixar's Elemental.
Yeah, Pixar's latest movie.
Not that Elemental like looks on a technical level bad, but Zootopia for some reason feels like it has so much more character to it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Elemental.
It looks like it's a very clean, like very cleanly animated movie. So I admire that looking back on it. But yeah, I don't know. Generally, I like it. I enjoy it. I appreciate its like crime procedural aesthetics and the way it runs its world and everything. I don't know. It's a cool movie, but like it kind of has a weird just like cloud hanging over it, slightly due to some weird like implications of some of its metaphors and themes. But I think generally it's a good time. So what about you, Micah? What do you think of Zootopia?
Yeah, Zootopia is an odd one because back when this came out, I actually like it was one of my favorite Disney movies in a while. It was one of the first like almost like procedural crime, quote unquote thrillers. It's not a thriller, but it's in that kind of like writing style for like the middle.
Essentially, it functions as a thriller for like half the movie.
Yeah, so this was like the first thing that I got of that, and I really, really loved that. And I like Nick and I like Judy a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
And the world has like goofy details that I loved to like obsess about. Like for some reason, even now while watching it, I can't help but notice how insane the economy is. Just pay attention to all of the prices of things, even like the parking tickets and stuff while you're watching the movie, and it is a wild thing to witness.
The lemmings are wild to witness, Mike.
But yeah, there's some rough, very 2016 race allegory mixed in there, which is like, I want to say it's like fine because theoretically the ideas behind Zootopia aren't bad by any means.
It has the best intentions,
but they grab from a lot of cultural shorthand that can easily sour you to a lot of the actual movie going experience.
Yeah.
And beyond that, the pacing is a little whack.
It is.
But at the same time, I still just really love being with these characters. Again, Judy and Nick are just really great to watch. And I wish they actually had like more to do in this. They only like the mystery, like the best part of the movie is the middle of the movie, which is rare for movies.
Right.
But like the middle of the movie, I wish was longer. Like I wish the mystery was longer and you had more of them just getting along, doing things. We had Nick with all of his crime stuff and Judy being like a goofy cop like she is. That would have been cool.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I still really like it. It's just not like I don't know. It doesn't.
I want to like it more.
It's not as good as I want it to be.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
I ended up also giving it a 3 out of 5 on this latest viewing.
A very close to 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say this would be like right on the edge of 3.5, man, because it is, like I said, pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's not
accounts.
bad by any means at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have a question to kick us off?
I figured we may as well just get it out of the way. We mentioned that one of the like weirdest things about this movie, looking back on it, is it's kind of like commentary on like racial tension and stuff, and like just generally racism as a theme in this movie. What do you think of how it handles that? Because that is honestly, like, looking back on it, one of the weirdest things about it, I think.
Well, on the surface level, it's like laughably bad about racism and its stuff for racism. Again, making your like theoretical minority that everybody is going to be prejudiced to for the rest of the movie be biological predators is not particularly the move in terms of any allegory to real life.
Yeah. I was about to say that is really the biggest hang up for me, is that they're like, because I really like the idea of Zootopia being like, you know, a uniting movie. Like, it's actually a pretty progressive movie, all things considered.
And it's not a bad kicking off point to say, like, oh yeah, you have like a kind of racism kind of thing going on between predators and prey. It makes sense on paper.
It's just a troublesome implication.
I was about to say, again, where it goes a little wonky is when you again, for those of you who watch like Lindsay Ellis, if you look at something like Bright, Netflix's Bright, you can have race allegory, but the moment you try and take that race allegory and add modern shorthand, you better have a good race allegory.
I was about to say, like, borrowing from cultural aesthetics and like just general vibes and practices. It's
There are so many loaded lines in this movie and loaded little things that make it clearly what they're going for is comparing modern minorities to the predators in this. Yeah. Which is it just doesn't work. Especially, like, I don't know, maybe
especially post 2020. Yeah, that
post
kind of
2020. It's just, it seems out of place and awkward and very ham-fisted. Because there are some things even about it that still work. Like, I think there are some genuinely good ideas. Again, I think the base idea of predator and prey racism, like, is essentially a good idea.
No, I think it is.
From an animal standpoint.
I think the way they
society.
The way they fill it out is weird.
Yeah, it's just, they just grab too much from the real world, I think. And,
no, there's too much baggage in a lot of the stuff.
There's weird, like, stereotype stuff. There's weird lines, like the go back to the jungle. I'm from, like, the mountains or something like that. I don't remember. The fact that Judy, if we're looking at this through the lens of racism, her character arc is becoming not, comedically racist and getting a predator best friend who then becomes a cop.
I think that's so funny. If you read it as like the race allegory, the ending of this movie is just minority figure becomes cop.
Which again, it also doesn't fully work. Like, again, that's why I said on surface level is where it's most weird. But it gets like or at least most rough, because if you look closer, it just gets weaker and more weird, not like bad.
It's just
because
flimsy.
Like, again, you can say that they're very definitely going with the shorthand of the minorities being the predators, because they even say, prey outnumber predator 10-1. But in Judy's life, the main character of the story, that's the opposite of being true. Almost every character we see outside of her is a predator, and
pretty close. Yeah,
that she's the one being discriminated against at work because of her size.
A lot of, or at least a couple of my friends, when they were writing up their Zootopia reviews, assumed that it was going to be about like feminism in the workplace, like women in the workplace,
right?
Kind of thing, which would make a little more sense, honestly.
Right, and it's not about that at all.
Yeah,
and it really doesn't make sense, because you have two things going on here. You have the discrimination against predators because of biological history. You're supposed to be viewed as very bad. and wrong.
Yeah.
And then you have the discrimination between like Judy simply because of her size.
She's just tiny.
But the size thing just doesn't really come up. There's no big like class difference between the sizes of animals. There's no animal that's trying to like get revenge. There's
Get
no
rid
even
of all the tiny animals.
there's no like big animal complaining about the fact that it costs $15 for a popsicle their size where it costs $2 for a popsicle lemming size.
So funny, man. Yeah.
There's nothing that actually plays into one of the biggest like things actually affecting our main character, because it's not even just predator prey is the reason for why she's getting discriminated against, because again, even the chief, he is technically prey. He's
right.
The elephants, those aren't really predators. They're not exactly prey, but they're not predators.
They're just munching leaves most of the time.
I was about to say, a lot of the bigger animals that are in the police station are not like the most predatory animals in the world.
Right.
And it's just size is the reason that people are like, oh, that's goofy that a bunny wants to become a cop.
A cop.
A
Yeah.
cop.
A cop, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, it's one of like
It's
probably
weird.
the lamest things you could complain about
It
in
really
this movie.
is.
But if you read it any different direction that you possibly could read it, it just doesn't make any sense and is kind of yikes depending on what the individual scenes.
Yeah, no, and honestly, that's probably the biggest reason that, because I don't usually do half stars. That's the biggest thing holding it back from me, like wanting to give this a 4
Yeah.
instead of a 3. It's just like it kind of leaves a weird taste in my mouth every time I finish Zootopia, or even every time I start Zootopia.
I think it's really funny. I think the scene is always so funny. So they set up this scene after Judy she thinks she's revealed the mystery. She thinks she's a hero.
Yeah.
And they got her on a press interview with like every
gosh.
different type of animal.
No.
They're all there. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. I don't know. I've never done this public speaking." And Nick's like, "Oh, let me talk you through it." And he gives her some nice advice. And then she starts the speech and she's like super nervous. She's using his advice. And then they're like, "What do you think's causing it?" And then she's like, "Well, it might be their biology." And then she goes into that with like extreme confidence for 5 minutes before Bellwether has to cut her off.
I swear, man. Goofy.
The fox away spray.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's weird.
What about you, Micah? Do you have a question
Yes,
you
I
wanted to
do.
shoot at me?
What do you think of the way the actual plot progresses, though? Like, well, moving away from that, because I think that's what a lot of people get hung up on.
Like I said,
or-
I wanted to talk about
or
that
not
so we
hung
could
up
talk
on.
about other stuff.
But like that is only a small thing, and that's really not something you can criticize too hardly, because it's like it's just weird, you know.
It's more strange than it is bad.
It's not like it's a bad allegory, but it's not even like they're leaning too hard into like the I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, what do you think of the way the actual like pacing of the movie plays out, the structure and pacing?
You know, as like kids crime movies go, this is pretty much the gold standard in my mind.
Yeah.
I honestly can't think of a better like children crime movie than this
I don't
one.
think I can think of another children crime movie.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
you know.
But yeah, no, I think in general, I really like the way the whole thing is paced out again in the like middle section, the second act, when they're actually going from like clue to clue and like new location to new location. The pacing of the movie works surprisingly well.
Yeah, it's got a great flow.
Yeah, it's got a good flow. It's got a nice shift in like location. Again, Zootopia as like a location for a crime movie is actually really cool.
Yeah, I was about to say during the middle investigation part, it's constantly engaging and exciting and interesting. It never like lands on one thing for too long.
Yeah,
like even
something I really
watching
admire.
this recently, because I hadn't seen this movie in a while. Like
Yeah, it's been a while.
The Naturalist Club. I remember that scene being longer. It's pretty short. Even if you're thinking like, oh wow, that's kind of a stupid joke, it still only lasts for like a couple minutes, and there's a good joke inside of that.
I was about to say, I don't find that inherently funny, but one of the like receptionist guy is like one of the funniest bit characters in this whole movie.
Mind like a steel trap. That's the thing that really helps the pacing too, especially during the middle, because I honestly think that the middle is when this is just allowed to be really funny.
Yeah,
they just so really funny, they go for all of the jokes that they want. And I mean, people always talk about like the Godfather section, which is funny. Oh my gosh,
the Godfather section. Now that I've actually seen the Godfather, watching this again,
you got like but there's just so many bits, like the Weaselton chase on the train with the different shapes and everything. This movie is so genuinely really funny.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And again, that middle section is really where that energy thrives. Like you get some of the best Judy and Nick stuff in the middle, and a lot of my favorite just general like action beats that I like a lot are in the middle of the movie.
Which I was about to say, the reason, look, thinking about it though, the middle and the beginning and the end are the two parts where it takes itself most seriously with its race stuff.
Yeah,
and it's really focused on that, and it's
not bad.
It's not bad,
but it's just not as fun.
Yeah,
or engaging.
I was about to say the actual engaging stuff and the interesting stuff going on here is Judy and Nick uncovering a cool conspiracy.
Yeah.
And again, it still works well for their characters for Nick to be like discriminated against because he's a fox. That's cool.
Yeah.
But Judy is also discriminated against because of her size. Again, it doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah.
For like actual writing dynamics, but Judy and Nick as characters are just immensely fun to watch, especially when they actually have a fun mystery to do that's well paced with different locations. Again, you get a lot of like Nick's fun like street knowledge paired with Judy, which I was surprised about this. Like I thought Judy might be annoying this time around, just like not seeing it in a while, because that kind of character can easily be really annoying.
Be like, annoying so easily.
Like a hyper enthusiastic, can't get her down no matter what kind of character.
Yeah.
And she's really, really fun in this.
Right. I was about to say, I was expecting not to like her this time around, but you know what? I can't argue. It's a good like dynamic, and she's such a surprisingly like compelling central character for this. I don't know why. I don't expect it.
Again, despite extreme prejudice.
Right.
But no, like there's a bunch of fun stuff with her, like the carrot bit and like the apartment, like the entire apartment stuff is really funny. Even if they're stealing bits from over the hedge.
Dude, the neighbors in the apartment is one of the funniest bits in any children's animated movie I can think of. It's
so despite her like enthusiasm, I think what makes her character work so well is that she always has like kind of a hidden thing of like, man, this actually kind of sucks, but she's really trying her best to put a good face on everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, and her whole character is sold on like sincerity, and even when she's doing like the wrong thing, we kind of like feel for her because this is what she's dreamed of her entire life, you know?
Right. Again, that's why it's so weird, like the moment like that she goes into the whole biology thing in her speech, because she had only heard this from one other person, and it was the people who had all of these animals locked up, who she is arresting.
Right.
So she's just going off of like some doctor being like, I have no idea.
I've got no
maybe
clue.
Biology,
maybe.
Since they're all predators. I don't know. Maybe furry animals, they all have fur. You know? And then her latching onto that because of her childhood prejudices.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention after the like false victory, the arrest and everything at the end of I guess the end of Act 2. Yeah, it depends where you split it.
The pacing goes to like a standstill.
Yeah, it kind of grinds to a halt after the like press conference and everything, and then like you get this weird montage-y kind of section, and there's a time jump.
Again, the problem is
it's weird.
The problem actually again remains that their race allegory plot has nothing to do with Judy.
Yeah.
That's not why she's discriminated against. That's not any of her motivation. She doesn't.
I mean, she feels bad for causing more tension,
but like she succeeds in her goals of like catching somebody.
Right.
She did her big investigation. She proved herself, and then she just has nothing.
Yeah.
She has no stakes in really what they're doing. They keep being like, you're our new face of the ZPD, and she's like,
yeah, that plot point doesn't really
and it's
matter.
like a montage of people being racist to the predators, and like people being like, this is bad, and then like she just kind of goes away and is sad about what she did until like she arbitrarily realizes that they may have jumped to conclusions in their investigation.
Right. I know. I thought that was kind of funny that like the big reason she like has this realization about everything is because she like suddenly out of nowhere gets a clue that solves the case.
See, it would have been nice too if it actually, I mean, it technically is because of Gideon that she gets the clue, but not like really.
I don't know. I liked that. I was like, that's a smart way to write that.
Well, I wanted him to be like more, but I wish they were like his like his farm or something, right? Like,
that would have been really nice.
Like
actually.
he was like, oh yeah, those
like what if they sent her like to his like I don't know, wherever he makes his
something
pies.
to make a little bit more like
more
a little
personal.
bit more personal for tying back to Gideon. Because,
that would have been really sweet.
Like that's technically where her personal emotional prejudice takes place.
Yeah,
is because of Gideon.
Exactly. No, that's a good point, actually.
And I do like that he's here, though. He's really fun to see again, and I like his performance.
Dude, Gideon, like, I hate him in the first part. Like, not even just like, oh, he's like a bad person. I just don't like his character. He's kind of an annoying villain. He's an annoying, like, motivating force for Judy. But like, him when he comes back is like the best thing to happen to this movie.
Right.
He's so good.
No, yeah. Like I said, it's just odd though for the from a pacing standpoint.
Absolutely,
that you have. Okay, so you have intro. She wants to become a cop. They're like, oh, you'll never become a cop. You're a bunny. She goes through a training montage. Everybody's like, oh, you're not going to become a cop. You're a bunny. She goes through all this stuff, and it's like it's not like the worst paced thing in the world, but it definitely takes a bit to get going into the plot.
It's just not that interesting.
Yeah, it's not that engaging or interesting. Nothing really unique is happening. They're not using the world in a very unique way yet. Yeah. So like it's just kind of there. Then you get into you have 48 hours, and you're like, yeah, this is great.
The meter maid sequence is pretty fun. The meter maid
sequence is fun. The 48 hours is great. You get all of the good stuff in there, and then they solve the case. they did it. And then you get like a weird montage of racism and Judy being like, I'm sad. Maybe I don't want to be a cop anymore. And
well, Micah, she wasn't making the world a better place by being a racist police officer.
Exactly. Who would have thought? So then she goes back home to the farm and she kind of sits, and she is not like a motivating factor for the reason that the plot kicks back up again. Gideon comes back in and he's like, oh man, we just called those night howlers. And they're like, wow, we sure did jump to conclusion that night howlers meant wolves.
Right? Like some like secret society of wolves or something. Like what?
So then they're like, it's a flower. The flowers are making, like, it completely cracks up. Did nobody think this is what bothers me about it? Like, was there not a single person? Because clearly this is something that farmers just know, right? That these flowers make people go crazy. That's why they use them to guard their plants.
Yeah.
And that's like clearly this is something scientific. Did nobody stop and type into Google night howler? Or did none of the scientists think, what is a chemical that might make animals go crazy?
Well, like, Micah, you have to remember it's called Zoogle in this universe.
Yeah, Zoogle. like it literally, like, I think that's what really bothers me about the actual mystery of this, because I like it in theory, but it really is kind of stupid that like nobody would figure this out when this is not something new or established. Like, it's not like it had to be concentrated into the little serum that Doug is making for this to do it to somebody, because again, he could
just like sneak it into someone's food.
The guy ate one and then went crazy. Like the bunny went crazy and attacked the mom bunny. like that is a thing that apparently just happens when you eat the
Although,
flower.
Micah, it's kind of established that, like, once they've distilled it or whatever, it's, like, a more permanent thing.
Yes, they established that it's more
movie.
permanent when you distill it, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, it seems to have direct parallels.
Yeah, no, I get that.
To that, and Judy just never was like, night howlers, so wonder what that could mean. Even though she is a bunny who grew up on a farm that apparently, according to Gideon, all of them used them. Like, it's just a common farming practice.
Right. They said to keep bugs off the vegetables, Micah.
Yeah.
We don't see very many bugs. We see, like, some flies. That's about it.
It's just, it really makes the mystery kind of feel lame, because your pacing comes to a standstill, and then it's this goofy, they missed something coincidental and jumped to conclusions.
It's strange.
And then she's got to go and make up with Nick.
Because, like, the whole, like, mayoral conspiracy thing is actually a really interesting plot beat, and they just kind of breeze over it.
You get, like, you don't actually get to see any of, like, Bellwether's conspiracy.
Yeah.
You don't get to see any, like you get to
weird.
hear about it.
Yeah.
You get to, like...
And you're like, oh, that's cool.
She's like, it was me, Judy.
It was me, Barry.
but, like, you don't actually get to see them uncover the fact that it's Bellwether. Bellwether just so happens to completely reveal the fact that it's her by being stupid.
Dude, I still think that's kind of funny that she's just, like, there, and she's like, yeah, all right, here we go. I mean, I get she has to stop them before they turn in the evidence, but still.
Literally, they could have done that, like, at the police station or something.
Right.
Like, again, they have these cop rams and sheep and stuff, and they could have just been like, okay, we'll take that into evidence.
Right.
Plus, she's the mayor. She could have just been like, that's awesome, Judy.
Yeah.
No, by that point, she's the mayor.
I was going to say, the assistant mayor, but yeah, by that point.
So, like, there's so many things that she could have done instead of arbitrarily showing up where she couldn't possibly know that Judy was unless she was...
She just shows her evil. Whole hand, man. It is kind of disappointing, but still not bad.
Well, I think that's what's sad. It's not even, like, the worst, but the entire ending of this movie always was a little disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Even the hustle of Bellwether, like, because it's not set up, you know.
It's a fun callback.
It's set up in theory, yeah. Like it's a callback to both the recordings and hustling, but, like, they could have had, like, a fun plan or something.
Right.
The only thing that's there for is to trick you into thinking that Nick actually goes savage.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, I guess. But then, like, every time I've rewatched it, I've been like, guys, there's, like, no setup for this. It really just feels like a cheap, like, just grasp for dramatic tension at the end, like, during that scene.
Yeah, I was about to say,
weird.
like, it just... It's not that it shouldn't be there, because it's not, like, an inherently bad decision.
It's a fun way to, like, do that.
But, like, again, from our perspective, which we watch them for, like, the entire time, they have no time to talk about this plan.
Right.
They have no time to even talk about putting the blueberries into the gun. Why did he do that?
I mean, like, all of the elements are there, but, like, from our perspective, it just kind of seems weird. Like, just... You know, like, we can put it together, obviously, but, like, it's just kind of strange in the context of that scene.
Yeah, which is kind of the vibe of Zootopia.
You can put it together,
which is
like,
like
weird.
what we were kind of saying with our overall thoughts on the movie.
Yeah.
Is it's not bad by any means, and I don't think any of these big elements detract from the actual quality of the movie that much, but it certainly is weird.
Right.
But I have another question to kind of lead us into a different thing, because we've talked a lot about, like, the actual story and world building and stuff, which is a big part of this movie. A very
vital part.
I was about to say a very good and bad part of this movie.
Yeah.
But what do you think of, like, the actual use of, like, animation, the technical, like, quote unquote camera work, and, like, the actual film aesthetics of this movie?
I was actually kind of struck this time watching it at how naturalistic a lot of the lighting and stuff is, and yet obviously it manages to have a lot of clarity because it's an animated movie. But it has a very natural way of lighting. It looks very natural in its lighting.
In animated movies, they actually light people's faces.
Right, so you can actually see the people on the screen.
Sure wish that happened nowadays in live action movies. All you need to do is put some light on their face.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it struck me this time, like a lot of the even the indoor scenes are very nicely lit and again, very naturalistically lit. And I really quite like the way this is shot a lot of the time. It's got a good bounce to it, but it's not too like zany.
Yeah.
So I don't know, a lot of the procedural aesthetics work pretty well for it. Any of the like environmental changes you can really feel. Again, we kind of talked about how Zootopia's atmosphere is surprisingly tangible.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from the cool use of like quote unquote camera. Like when they're in like Tundra Town, you really feel like there's a lot of camera stuff that feels like it really captures a lot of that. And then, like, when they're in the rainforest, like, you get, like, the rain that looks like it's on the lens and, like, just different things that, like, really feel like the dust on the camera lens, like you said.
On the camera lens in the hospital.
Like, there's just a lot of stuff that makes the camera, or at least tries to make the theoretical camera feel like a lot more of a, like, thing. Yeah. And it really adds to a lot of the atmosphere of, like, existing in these different locations, because honestly I think the different locations can be would be a little bad if it didn't sell you it on atmosphere. But for the most part it sells you on all of the different locations.
I would tend to agree. And I mean, the hope is with animated features, or at least my hope is, that they're a little more intentionally shot than live action stuff,
right? Because they can do whatever they want.
Because if they're watching a sequence and they're like, I don't like that shot, potentially you can just animate it to be a different shot. It takes work, obviously, but
but especially in 3D animation, you can move the camera a lot more freely.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to storyboard a lot more intentionally in animation than you would in like a live action sequence.
Yeah, and I don't think this movie is like the greatest animated movie or even 3D animated movie, like film wise.
No,
there's a lot more movies that use a lot of the actual animation ability to a lot better effect.
Yeah.
And in fact, one thing that I used to criticize this movie for quite a bit was the very sterile feeling of a lot of the actual animation of the city. It never felt very lived in to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. Some of the environmental design isn't as, like you said, lived in as it could be. But maybe that speaks to the Zootopia government keeping the city too clean or something.
Well, no, that's just something that's always been a complaint of mine, because that's something you run into, and in my opinion, with like 90% of 3D animated movies, is they always feel too clean. They always feel too sterile and clean and not very textureless on a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I could see that for this one for sure, because the outdoor environments are cool a lot of the time, especially like the rainforest stuff. But any of the interior environments feel pretty samey, like tile with like just a muted wall color kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think overall, quite frankly, the camera work and the actual animation and stuff are pretty good in this, and I think
I like the character animation quite a bit.
I was about to say the character animation is memorable,
especially on Nick.
I was about to say Nick is really surprisingly expressive. You don't get very many like extremely expressive 3D animated characters, and I would put him up there as one of like the more expressive 3D animated characters I've seen. Like even his expressiveness is more close to something like Hotel Transylvania than anything else I've seen from Disney, you know? Yeah. Like he's actually like, his face is moving, and like he's like his actual structure of his face, like a fox, will shift around.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I have to say, I do admire a lot of the character designs and the way they move and everything. It's quite good. It lends to a lot of character for the movie itself.
Do you have a favorite scene or sequence? Or
favorite scene or sequence? Oh gosh, why do we never prepare for this?
Never, not a single time. I think we prepared like twice
in the history
in the history of this podcast, which we've been doing for like 4 years.
It's been like 4 or 5 years now. It's ridiculous. I would probably go with, oh gosh, I was gonna say the Godfather scene, but that seems like it's like a bit.
It is a bit.
It seems weird to choose. Oh gosh, like a real scene from the movie. The thing is, a lot of them have just like little things that annoy me about them.
Yeah, and like
I have trouble picking one that I'd be like, oh yeah, that's my favorite one.
Like we said, the whole middle section is kind of a pretty fast-paced procedural investigation kind of section, so a lot of that kind of blends together.
Yeah, because I want to say, like, I would want to say, like, something like the DMV scene, because that's fun, but, like, I don't know, it seems silly to call that my favorite scene, you know?
Yeah, it was like, I was gonna say, like, one of my favorite scenes is probably, like, the Wesselton Chase scene, but even that is kind of, like, an odd scene to choose as a favorite.
It's too short to, like, really be, like, its own, like, whole thing. It's, I don't know, it's weird. They don't really write, like, full scenes in this movie very much.
It's a very montagey movie in general.
It's just like Goodfellas. It's like a big montage.
That's what this movie needed. It needed like goofy voiceover with great editing and a good soundtrack.
That would have been hilarious.
This thing needs to be made like Goodfellas or like Casino or The Irishman or something, you know.
When will we get a kids movie that imitates the form of Casino?
Right.
That's my question.
We need that kind of weird, really heavily relies on voiceover and like montagey stuff, but like is really good actually.
Dude, that
can't believe Casino works.
I love Casino so
It's
much.
like a 3-hour movie, and 2 hours is just Robert De Niro being like, and now I was the owner of the casino. And I had no idea what would happen.
Man, I love Casino.
Cool movie.
It's such a good movie, man. Some of Saul and Elaine Bass's best work, I will say, on the title sequence of that movie.
Title sequence, how goofy.
I love the title sequence of Casino.
I can't believe that's a Saw Bass title sequence.
Saul Bass is unmatched, man. But yeah,
this
favorite
is very
scene.
off topic.
Favorite scene in the movie. I don't know. Am I allowed to say the Godfather scene?
Go for it.
It's pretty funny.
Might as well.
It's pretty funny. Like I said, I just feel silly picking any scene from this movie and being like, that's my favorite scene, you know?
Especially the one scene that's like a parody.
I was about to say, it feels like a jab, like an insult to this movie to pick something that's just imitating another movie as my favorite scene. I don't know.
I like the Doug action scene a lot.
Yeah, that one's fun. Again, it's just kind of like weirdly paced in its action. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah.
But again, I just feel weird picking any scene from this movie and being like, good scene. Am I right? Because any of its like action scenes are either too short or just kind of weirdly stilted for me to be like, oh, I love that scene.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that comes from the kind of weird pacing like we were mentioning.
Yeah.
Because I think the middle is a bit too short, honestly.
Yeah.
For more reason than one, because thinking about it, you're exactly right, and I didn't even think about this until now, but you're exactly right that like almost every single scene, especially in the middle section, which is where I think the movie's at its best, funniest, most interesting, good action, whatever. All of the scenes are really short, and every beat does not last long.
Yeah, it skips by, which is nice, but like also I kind of want to sit with it a little more.
Yeah, I was about to say, to some effect, that's really good for the movie in terms of it not like just spending way too long in different scenes.
Keeps it from being like this weird crime slog movie.
But like even like the Mr. Manchas thing is like it's only there for weird. Like 10 minutes.
Yeah, like I like the idea of it a lot. I wish there was like maybe, I don't know, a minute and a half more of Manchas like talking to them or something before
make the mystery a little bit more engaging.
Yeah, just
before big chase, and then
building a little more tension.
Big chase, and then them instantly being like, "He's not here, so clearly you guys are crazy."
Yeah, everything's very fast, but not in a like, oh, that was like, a substantial.
It's not.
Plot point.
It's not snappy. It's just fast.
It's just fast. Exactly. Yeah. It's a shame, but I think a lot of its action and mystery beats are too quick, and then a lot of its dramatic beats are just not fleshed out enough for me to be like, oh, I loved that dramatic scene.
Or again, rely too heavily on the kind of race allegory.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Again, I have a really tough time picking a favorite from this just because there's so much, like, there's always just something, one little thing about every scene that just bothers me.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of evident of, like, this movie in general. I don't think it's not bad by any means.
No,
like, it's not bad at all. And I understand loving this a lot.
Oh,
because, I mean, I
absolutely.
used to love this a
Yeah,
lot.
it used to be one of my favorites.
And I still really like it.
I was more of a big Hero 6 guy, though.
That was his mistake.
Exactly. Oh, dude, that movie has not aged well in my mind.
Little childhood Robbie was like, yeah.
Dude, I thought Big Hero 6
6
was epic. And then, like, 2 years later, I'm like, what was I thinking?
That was his mistake.
That was his mistake.
What?
I swear. Man.
But no, I think that's kind of evident for this movie is that it's a little weird. It's a little sloppy in some of its world building and allegory, and outside of that, it just doesn't quite hit anything.
It's so close.
As well as it could.
It's so close to being like one of the greatest like Disney
Honestly,
movies.
yeah, I was about to say one of the best movies Disney put out,
Yeah.
and it's got like the groundwork for that.
It really does. Those character dynamics and basically all of the characters in this movie actually.
I was about to say,
great.
the characters are some of the best things
And
I
that's
think
what people
modern
have latched
Disney
on
has
to.
done. Yeah, I mean that's why there's a Zootopia Plus. That's why a YouTuber created an entire feature-length and hand-animated sequel to this movie, Return to Zootopia.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's odd.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's odd. But like the reason people latch that much onto this is because Nick and Judy and even the other characters that they interact with throughout are just interesting.
I was
They're
about
good.
to say Clawhauser and Bogo
Clawhauser,
are
Bogo.
actually you could just do a whole police like movie with them, you know? Like it would be fun.
So even if the world never feels quite as fleshed out as it could, for some reason its character dynamics feel extremely well fleshed out.
Yeah.
And are just really, really fun to watch play out.
Right.
Even the Nick stuff, which his like sad tram flashback scene, which is something that's very against my sensibilities of how I like writing to go, is not even like they do a good enough job with it that it's not lasted on too long. He's just like, yeah, this happened to me, and that's when I decided to live this life I have. But you gotta not let anything get you down. Don't let anybody tell you what you can be.
I do appreciate how brief it is, but it just feels so cliche, man.
No, yeah. I mean, again, I don't like that from a writing standpoint, but at the same time, with executing something like that,
I mean, that's like the best way you can do it.
I was about to say, because of the characters and the way their dynamics work, it's actually done surprisingly smoothly.
Yeah, no, it is. And like I said, I think it's honestly the best execution they could have hoped for that.
I was about to say, the noisy neighbor characters, like every individual character. Take something like Sing, which operates... as bad as this sounds, in a similar idea of a universe.
It does. No, Sing is actually a really similar movie to this, surprisingly.
Sing's characters suck. They're all annoying stereotypes, which there are a lot of stereotypes in Zootopia, but most of the characters are still pretty
I think
likable.
archetype is a better word for
archetype.
that.
There are more stereotypes in Sing. Archetype is better for Zootopia. But like, I mean, Sing isn't a well thought through world at all, but just even from a character standpoint, if we're talking anthropomorphic animal society movies, the fact that like if you look at Sing versus Zootopia, it's laughable how none of the characters in Sing have any interesting dynamics,
right,
or any personality at all.
I was trying to think. I'm like characters in Sing. You got Buster.
Got the one,
and that's it.
The one lizard lady.
And I'm like, I don't even like Buster that much.
Taron Egerton is doing his thing.
Exactly. No,
they're all they're literally.
I have all of these. Like, I remember all the characters, but I'm trying to think of any way that they would interact.
One of the biggest flaws with Sing in general. We're not talking about Sing, but I'll throw this out there. One of the biggest flaws with Sing is that none of its characters who are put in this competition together, who then have to work together to come together for the big thing at the end, interact at all.
Right? They just never have a scene together.
They never build any kind of dynamic. The closest thing is the two pigs, but then they're actually like used as like partner characters in their act. So literally, if you don't share an act with another one of the characters, they do not interact at all which is an insane choice.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually liked Zootopia, or not Zootopia, Sing quite a bit back when I first watched it, and that has fallen even farther in my memory. Man, what a film.
Literally, I would say that Sing, despite some of its more annoying elements, could have at least been like as memorable as something like Zootopia if they just had good characters like Zootopia
absolutely,
has.
yeah.
But literally, their characters are laughably bad.
You got like Family Guy Mouse, you got Rocket Man Gorilla Guy, you got
What do you do? Katy Perry Pig? I don't know.
What a joke of a movie, man.
Right.
You know, it looks good, at least.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the lighting looks good.
Yeah.
I don't know about the character models, but
yeah, we're not talking about Sing.
Sing.
We're talking about Zootopia, which is much better than Sing.
Yes, I agree. I concur.
But yeah, do you have any other thoughts about Zootopia? I feel like we've done a pretty good job talking about the different aspects of Zootopia, because it's a pretty simple movie on like the surface.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else that I would want to like mention specifically. A lot of my, like I said, a lot of my problems we've already covered.
It's a pretty good movie.
It's pretty good.
That
exactly.
gets bogged down by some weird stuff.
Yeah, it's got this weird like baggage that it carries around from like the real world, and like I don't know. It just kind of drags the whole thing down for me, which is a real shame, because like if that wasn't as big of a problem for me, I would love this movie.
Yeah, I was
like,
about to say you have the weird baggage with that.
Yeah,
which is it's just constantly there. You can't like I was trying to think. Oh,
you
maybe
can't
it
like
won't,
ignore
maybe
it.
It won't
really.
be so bad, but it's just constantly worked into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Real life parallels, real life references, all sorts of things are constantly thrown in your face throughout the movie. And
which I admire to a degree, but it just doesn't work as well as I wanted to.
And that paired with just some weird elements of the pacing and just kind of most scenes being just fine and just, I don't know. It makes for a weird but still good movie that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple movies like this, like Hugo, to my memory, is kind of this same way, where I'm like, that was a good movie, but I don't really like... I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, you know?
Yeah, but you got some hot takes with Hugo, because we haven't seen it like since
it came out.
Yeah,
no, I haven't seen Hugo in a while,
and
man.
Neither of us liked it when we watched it when it came out. And we and now that we didn't know who Scorsese was back when we watched it. So now that we've like seen a bunch of his movies, it's so weird, and I really do want to watch it.
I gotta see Hugo again, man. I read the book.
I read the book as well,
and it's weird.
It's weird.
I don't know. But yeah.
That's Zootopia.
That's Zootopia.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
I gave Casino a 5 out of 5, and I gave Zootopia a 3 out of 5.
I think Casino is a solid 4.5.
No, you got to give it the 5.
No, it's got some pacing issues.
It's got Robert De Niro and comedically large glasses.
It's got some pacing issues.
Final shot.
Some plot beats I don't like. I don't really like the relationship conflict with Casino.
No,
you know, it's no Goodfellas, Robbie.
I think that they are equal, separate but equal.
It's no The Irishman even.
Oh, I haven't seen The Irishman. I couldn't possibly comment. But yeah, Zootopia.
Zootopia, go check it out.
Go watch
Give it a watch. I bet you haven't watched it in a while.
It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And quite good, I say. Just not great.
Yeah.
Sad. But yeah.
Let's get into the What We Watched segment.
Let's do it.
Alright, so for those of you who are new to the podcast or never listened to this far before because we're very uninteresting, boring people, the What We Watched segment is a little thing we do at the end where we talk about all the other movies that we have seen since our last episode. We give brief thoughts, brief ratings, and we suggest them to you if we think they're good enough.
Wow, amazing. There it is.
So we're starting on the 29th since we took a break week because a lot of things were going on.
Because I had a birthday.
Not only that, we had a birthday, an anniversary, another birthday, plus like yeah, I don't know, Easter. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
There was a lot going on.
But yeah, March 29th, March 29th, 2023. That sounded wrong when I said
March
it.
29th,
yes.
2023. What did we start with, Robbie?
We watched a little film called 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
Directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
I had just watched it. I wanted to rewatch it and show it to Robbie because I thought he would love it.
Schmidt and Jenko, Micah.
Schmidt and Jenko.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, I really love this. Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Obviously, they're great. They're great comedy writers.
I think they're some of the best like comedic directors and writers in the game right now, if you ask me.
And Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill are really
gosh.
really fun as leads here.
They're so funny, man.
And this isn't even like my favorite comedy in the world, or even like the greatest comedy in the world, or anything. But I do really love it. It's one of the few instances of just really like stupid, over the top stupid humor has worked for me well.
I'm trying to think of another movie
because of how stupid the main characters are.
Something like Hot Rod would be similar, but even that, I don't know, that might be it's a different flavor of goofy than this is.
I don't know, I really appreciate what this movie is up to. I think I love how just kind of carefree it is.
Yeah, I was about to say it leans into the tropes and everything of like high school movies in a really fun way. Like, I mean, obviously that's kind of its whole gimmick, but I think it's really fun and really funny. Like, it has a lot of really good bits in it, man.
But yeah, it's definitely one that I would and I will watch for like just whatever. It's so like anytime funny, anytime I need like a fun, just easy movie to turn on, it's 21 Jump Street,
dude. Jonah Hill, I think this is probably his best thing. Like he's done.
I love Jonah Hill in this so much. Channing Tatum too is really fun.
Channing Tatum is great, man. I don't know. Some people I know are like, ugh, Channing Tatum. I'm like, he's such a funny actor, man.
Right.
Pretty good. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very nice, very nice.
Then on the 31st, we watched Song of the Sea.
Song of the Sea. Rewatch.
Yeah, rewatch. Cartoon Saloon, their, I think, second movie in the Irish folklore trilogy.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, this is the first time I had rewatched it. It had been a while.
Yeah, it was my first rewatch as well.
This is what I had considered my least favorite of the Irish folklore trilogy, even though they're all really, really great.
I'll stick by that, probably, that it's my least favorite.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's one of the weirder ones story-wise.
I just don't like the plotting of a lot of the second act.
No,
it's weird.
It's just kind of laid out oddly and paced weirdly. And just it's not the best.
But the first and third acts,
but
man, let me tell you.
The animation is as gorgeous as always. I think this is honestly one of the most personally, aesthetically appealing of any of them.
It's a beautiful
from
movie,
that trilogy. It's a lot more hard on its lines than the other movies.
Yeah,
and it's got a nice. It's lots of glow and blue and like I don't know. It's a gorgeous movie to watch.
It really is, man. It's a beautiful film. Like at the end of the day,
I was about to say, and honestly, that's like its biggest achievement. Which the story is fine, but honestly, it's like kind of a gateway to just watching a beautiful piece of art unfold.
Yeah. Again, I think the first and third act are where its best stuff is.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the character dynamics, but not enough to like the way they plot out the second act is just weird.
I was about to say, I don't think any of the characters are as strong as like any of the characters in Wolfwalkers or Secret of the Kells.
But yeah, no, it's good. It's solid for sure.
But yeah, no,
definitely
I really love it.
Watch it.
Yeah, for sure. I give it a 4 out of 5.
I also give it a 4 out of 5. It's a very good film, I say.
Then starting the month of April, I watched the second half, because technically the day prior I watched the first half. I watched the second half and finished and logged Until the End of the World, the director's cut, which is like the 5.5 hour cut.
Yeah.
Which is why I watched it in 2 parts.
Long movie.
There's actually, because I have the Criterion for it, and it literally is on 2 Blu-rays. Like, you put in the one Blu-ray, and that's like 2 hours, and then you put in the other Blu-ray, and that's like 2 hours, you know? But man, I've been thinking about this movie a ton. Like, it's not even my favorite thing in the world, but I have not stopped thinking about this since I've watched it.
That's a good sign, Mike.
It's a really, really unique movie. It's hard to talk about or describe in any way meaningful, especially in like a couple minutes for this.
Yeah.
but it's such an impressive and odd movie. It's doing so many different things, and it's pulling off the emotional level of it and the engagement of it extremely well.
I'm looking forward to watching it, man. It looks cool.
Yeah, on one instance, it's really poorly structured theoretically, where the entire movie and plot halts to a standstill for like the second to last hour. But yet somehow I think it works really well. And like the difference between the we're all stuck in Australia versus the ultimate road trip, it's such a big difference. But yet somehow they blended it into a really, really cool piece of art. And I love the different things that it has to say. It touches so many different themes. The actors are really, really good. I thought it was really funny that the main guy is William Hurt, that guy from the Hulk movies, because it was just weird seeing him young.
It's funny.
But no, it's my first, how do you say his name? Wim Wenders, I guess?
Yeah.
It was my first Wim Wenders movie.
It's a fun name.
And it was very, very good and extremely impressive.
I'm really stoked for it because it looks like my kind of sci-fi movie. Looks good.
I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Yossi is right, and it is the perfect New Year movie.
Nice.
Then on the second, I watched David Lynch's Lost Highway.
Lost Highway? How'd it get lost? How'd you lose a highway?
How'd you lose a whole highway?
It's on the maps.
but I did a free trial of the Criterion channel when they got the big David Lynch collection, because it had some movies that I wanted to watch on it. That
put like almost all of his movies on there, man.
That weren't anywhere else. So while I had it, I decided to turn on Lost Highway, even though it was a little bit more not clean than I would prefer. I was like, I'll just skip the stuff that I don't want to see. It'll be fine. But then I think IMDb undersold it a little bit. It's
the parent guide.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I had to skip a lot of the movie. And I mean, I don't think that took away too much from understanding anything about the movie. I think, honestly, outside of it just not being anywhere near as clean as I would like it to be, to where I wouldn't really go out of my way to ever watch it again or suggest it to anyone. But I really think the actual, what it's trying to do is very cool. I love the supernatural stuff in it. It's one of the creepier David Lynch movies I've seen, darker in tone than especially something like Mulholland Drive, or even honestly Inland Empire.
Yeah.
And it's just it's got great aesthetics, and
that opening title sequence.
The opening title sequence is great, and Robert Blake as the mystery man. That's like honestly my favorite David Lynch character.
Nice.
He is really. You think he's just going to be like a one-off, like, oh, that's creepy, but he's really cool throughout the entire movie. But unfortunately, again,
just not your thing.
I wouldn't really suggest it to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna watch it, be warned.
Be warned. Be warned.
There's like seven sex scenes in the movie, all within varying ranges of graphicness. Yeah. And I was like, So yeah.
Unexpected. There it is.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 though.
And the next day, I sat down, and because it was my birthday.
It was your birthday.
I wanted to watch one of my favorite movies, and I ended up landing on Men in Black, which I had a Blu-ray copy of, and I was like, ooh, I'll finally watch it on Blu-ray for the first time. And then the Blu-ray disc just stopped playing halfway through the movie. So for about 20 minutes, I was trying to find it on streaming, and then I was like, I'm gonna have to pull out my VHS copy to finish it. So I had to fast forward to the spot of the movie where I was. It was a whole thing. But I watched Men in Black, and it still rocks. It's still the best sci-fi comedy ever, probably. And it's just, I don't know. I can't explain why. It's got the greatest energy of all time, Micah, and also the greatest cast of all time.
If you say so.
It's so good. It's so funny. And so, I don't know. I tear up multiple times watching Men in Black.
What?
Men in Black has me crying in the club, Micah.
Where?
I don't know. I don't know. Any of its any of the parting ways scenes, I'm like, this is so sweet.
Couldn't
I don't know
me.
why.
Couldn't be me.
I gave Men in Black a 5. It's an all-time favorite of mine, and I think it'll remain that way for a long time. It's so good.
Then later on Robbie's birthday, since Robbie's movie trial was ending,
It was ending that day,
we
dude.
finally got around to Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench.
Guy and Madeline.
Damien
How'd they get
Chazelle's
there?
first movie and the only other movie from him that I had not seen. I
Yeah,
have not
this was
seen
the
all
last
of his
feature.
movies.
Last feature film that we had not seen from Damien Chazelle.
And it's an odd one, I would say.
It is kind of odd. Very student film.
I was about to say, obviously, a lot of its odd elements mostly come from the fact that it's a very student film.
Yeah.
Very low budget. But beyond that, it's just kind of weird.
It's a strange movie. It's a very unconventional
I thought
movie.
it was odd how little it's a musical until a couple musical numbers.
It's like, it has like 2 real musical numbers, and the rest of them are just kind of like, you know, like sequences with music rather than full-on musical numbers.
Yeah, and it's just kind of odd. The plot, unfortunately, I think, although I think it's cool, I think it's a little hard to follow because of the filmmaking. Like, it can be genuinely really confusing.
I get it now.
Especially being that I kept mixing up, what is her name? Like Elena or something? Like Elena and Madeline. They looked really similar.
They do look very similar.
So I just kept on thinking they were the same person, and I was
No,
like, what?
like
and then I was like, oh. So it's a little bit hard to follow at times, and it's not the most interesting thing in the world, but it's 83 minutes, and it never overstays its welcome.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really beautiful film for what it is. I honestly, really the only problems I have with it are just kind of the way it goes about telling its story, because I think it does have a really interesting story, and it has a lot of stylistic flair and good music. Like, I mean, it's Justin Hurwitz.
It is literally just La La Land.
It's proto La La Land.
But some of the songs are literally songs from La La Land, which I was not expecting.
Yeah. But yeah, it feels very early Jacques Demy, which is obviously a big influence for Chazelle in general. So
yeah,
it makes sense, I guess. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was pretty great.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And then also on your birthday, we went out to the theater.
We went out to the old theater.
The local theater.
Local cinema.
The local cinema, and we got to see Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Heck yeah, we did. It was a pretty good birthday watch, I will say.
The John and Jonathan of Game Night.
Of Game Night fame.
Doing a D&D movie, which sounds like it could be easily very bad, but I think the general consensus for most people is that this is surprisingly just really fun.
It's a good time.
It's not like the greatest movie in the world,
no.
But it's like, I don't know, like I put in my review, it's the kind of thing that very much feels like a pre-pandemic kind of movie in terms of film culture. It's simple and fun,
and it's sincere.
It's sincere. It's got a lot of fun practical effects and some cool like a good blend of practical and CG.
I am so glad that a lot of this is practical. It's gonna age so much better.
Right? The cast is really fun.
The cast is a blast, dude.
The plot is a little overcomplicated, but it's kind of goofy and fun because of it.
I said it's like, I don't know, the actual story's a bit paint by the numbers, like from a top-down view, but like it really makes it work. I don't know, it's pulling it off.
Yeah, I don't know, like it's just it's a fun little movie.
Yeah,
I have no complaints, no major complaints anyway.
Yeah, I was about to say that I have some like weird complaints with like the plotting and stuff sometimes, and like just again, you mentioned how frictionless a lot of the movie is back when we first watched it.
Yeah, which
I think that is still kind of a big problem with it. But honestly, I think it's pretty great. I couldn't ask for much more from a
D&D movie. I'm surprised it turned out anywhere near as good as it is.
Right.
I give it a 3.5.
I ended up giving it a 4. I was there for it, man. I did not expect to be. I'm not much of a D&D guy myself.
Revy, Lost Highway, Guy and Madeline, and Dungeons and Dragons. They're the same movie.
It's the same movie, exactly. Oh boy. What did you watch next, Micah?
On the 4th, it was my anniversary.
What?
So I was
married?
No. It was me and my girlfriend's anniversary.
I love that.
We went to the aquarium. We hung out. And we were like, oh, we ought to watch a movie, since that's kind of the thing we've always, like, that's one of the major things we've done together since we've been dating, is watch movies together.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, Ooh. And she was like, maybe you could show me that one like romance movie you kept going on about. And I was like, ooh. In fact, though, it's not streaming anywhere. I watched Before Sunrise with her, but it wasn't streaming anywhere. And I didn't have my Criterion on me because she didn't mention it beforehand. So we ended up renting it.
No.
But
That's kind of funny.
I absolutely love Before Sunrise. And by the way, it is a perfect anniversary movie. Probably more so than any of the others because they hold a lot different baggage than this one. But
who'd have thunk it?
It was really, really fun to watch with Haley. And like it's really sweet and it was just a nice movie. And I'm glad it really held up under a rewatch. It was just as engaging, just as romantic, just as beautiful.
Is your first time rewatching it?
Yeah, that was my first time rewatching it. And I really, really love it. It's one of my favorite movies, easily.
Favorite Linklater, Micah?
It would be between that and Before Sunset. Okay. But probably. I give it a 5 out of 5.
All right, cool.
Also on the 5th, I watched... Oh, wait. No. That was the 4th.
Oh, that was the 4th.
Also on the 4th, but technically the 5th because it was that late. I watched Baby Driver.
Little film?
Little Baby Edgar Wright film. It was suggested to me on a little thing I was doing where somebody suggested me a movie for each month of the year. This was my April film, brought to you by Robbie.
I'm so sorry to have recommended this movie to you. I feel like a worse person.
It was actually probably my favorite Edgar Wright movie I've seen.
It's my favorite.
I'm not really a big Edgar Wright guy.
Yeah.
But I actually liked a lot of what this movie was doing and a lot of its stylistic things, surprisingly enough. And it has really good performances despite like 2 of its main leads being sexual predators.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sorry for recommending Baby Driver, but it is a good movie.
And like it's for some reason one of the most gimmicky Edgar Wright movies, but the one that felt like the least gimmicky to me.
Well, it uses its gimmick in a very good way, I think.
I don't know, like just... It's the one that I've actually connected to the most. I think Baby is a really interesting main character that I could actually relate to. Where I think that's honestly one of the biggest things that very much disconnects from anything with Edgar Wright's movies. Is I just don't like any of his protagonists that much.
From Scott Pilgrim.
Scott, whatever Simon Pegg's character's name is.
Sean. From Shaun of the Dead.
Sean. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just are not really characters that I connect with in any way.
I like Sean. I don't know. I can get down with that.
But I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Cool. It's a good movie.
Also on the 5th, I watched David Lynch's Dune.
Dune.
Being that I didn't really want to go out and buy it, and I was very cautious about it, but I had the Criterion channel when it was on there for a limited time, and I'm a huge, huge Dune fan. It's like my second favorite or first favorite, depending on when you ask me, book.
Spicy.
I was like, you know what? Let me watch David Lynch's Dune.
One of your favorite directors adapting one of your favorite books.
Exactly. And it's so sad. It made me so, so sad. Because I really like a lot of what David Lynch is doing with it. I like it. But it's bad.
But it's a bad movie.
And it's been butchered to literally, I honestly don't think if you did not know the story of Dune, I do not think you could follow this. Straight up. The middle is almost incomprehensible because of how fast it is going over everything. It sucks. The middle is so bad. But I really love the idea of what Lynch is doing here. Even though I'm a bit more of a fan of the idea of like Villeneuve's Dune and how he adapts it, I love like it's not my favorite, but I love like a pulpy Dune. It's a lot more. To say,
that one looks a lot more like cartoonish and pulpy.
Yeah, it's a lot more cartoonish. It's a lot more like it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it has a lot of the Lynch flavor that's really fun. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, baby.
But this is so not good objectively as a movie. It's bad, which made me really sad. I give it a 3 out of 5.
Micah's like terrible movie.
It's not a terrible movie, but objectively from like a writing structure standpoint, it is bad.
Yeah.
But it got completely butchered by studios. Director's cut for Dune, please.
Speaking of bad movies,
Whoa.
we watched a movie the next day called Shark
this
Tale.
was still on the 5th.
Well,
the same day.
I suppose it was the same day.
So I went from Dune to Shark Tale.
Shark Tale. We just got the hankering to watch Shark Tale, I suppose.
Well, specifically Marianne, our sister, been on the podcast a couple times.
Yeah.
She really loves Shark Tale, and we were talking about Shark Tale, and we were like, what if we watched Shark Tale? So then we just turned it on.
I had not seen Shark Tale since my childhood.
Why does Oscar look so bad? Look at the design. Why do all of the fish besides the sharks look awful?
They're just too human.
They're creepy.
They're freaky.
They're so creepy.
But yeah, Shark Tale, it's a bad movie. I don't really need to tell you why.
Even Sykes is creepy.
It's just got like the most baffling choices ever.
Yeah. So many people have said so much about Shark Tale. It's laughably bad to the point that it's kind of fun to watch every element be so terrible.
I mean, yeah, I was about to say, it actually has some good bits once in a while, and then it just immediately follows it up with like the worst thing I've ever seen. So it ends up just being blah.
It's a pretty garbage movie with creepy animation. And it's
the animation, dude.
I gave it a 1.5.
I'll stand by. This is Martin Scorsese's best performance in a movie.
He is not a good actor, but yet for some reason this is his best performance.
He's really good in this.
He's pretty consistently good in this, which is
so funny,
hilarious. Yeah, 1.5.
I give it a 2. But yeah.
Then to stick with my Shark Tale theme.
Your Shark Tale theming.
On the 6th, I tuned into Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. A very Shark Tale movie.
There's 1 degree of separation between Shark Tale and Mishima because Scorsese and Schrader work together.
Exactly. It's true. Paul Schrader. This was my second Paul Schrader directorial movie. I'm a big fan of Paul Schrader's writing. He's written most of my favorite Scorsese movies. And I mean, First Reformed is one of my favorite movies of all time.
First Reformed rules.
And this movie looked absolutely crazy. So I was very excited to get to it. I got it like while we were on the Criterion. While I had the Criterion channel, I was like, yeah, I'll finally watch it. And oh my gosh,
Machine.
There are issues I have with it, just in terms of, I think just a first watch, it's a little bit hard to gather what the movie is actually going for. But this is probably objectively one of the greatest movies ever made. Literally. Like, I cannot think of a movie better written than this. I cannot think of a movie more beautiful looking than this.
Do you think it's better than First Reformed? Or just different?
I think objectively it's probably better than First Reformed.
That's kind of the vibe I get from it, honestly.
I mean, even Paul Schrader said this was his masterpiece. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. This is just, I don't even know how you would make this. It is insane. It's beautiful. It's emotional.
Wait to see it, man.
It's magical. It's very, somehow they found a guy, a real life guy, who is the most Paul Schrader protagonist in the world.
Right? No, that's what's always like kind of weirded me out about Mishima is like it's Paul Schrader and he's Paul Schrader and he's writing a movie about, I don't know, culturally it seems very strange for him to make
Paul Schradering it up.
Exactly. That's like what he does.
Well, honestly, this movie would never get made in Japan ever for multiple reasons.
But yeah, it's just always struck me as interesting. I can't wait to see it.
No, I need the Criterion for this. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Very nice, very nice. On the 6th, I watched a little film called Rye Lane, which is a British rom-com from this year.
Wow.
And it's very good. And it's very well shot.
Shout out to those British people.
And it's very well lit. And it's very well performed.
I've not seen anybody love it as much as you. You gave it a 5 out of 5. That's pretty
Micah, this is
extreme.
This is my causeway for this year. I get a pass to rate one rom-com a 5 until I start dating someone. That's the rule.
I guess.
But yeah, no, I just really liked how whimsical seems like a kind of silly word to use for this movie, but I think its general sense of like whimsy is one of the most fun things about it. So it's kind of like a surrealist rom-com in a lot of ways. Which, again, sounds kind of silly, but I don't know. I think it works really well. I wish more people agreed with me. But I really loved it. I thought it was great. I gave it a 5. 5 out of 5, baby.
Then deep into the recesses of that night.
Right, it was so late, man.
It was very, very late, but it was the last day I had my Criterion free trial.
Yeah.
We tuned in to David Lynch's Inland Empire.
Inland Empire.
The only other one on there besides Firewalk with Me, I think. Yeah, I think that was the only other one on there that I missed from his stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Inland Empire.
Inland Empire.
It was one that I was one of the most excited I was for any of his movies.
This was my most anticipated Lynch movie that I hadn't seen. Like, this was the one I was itching to get to.
You haven't seen Mulholland Drive, Robbie.
I know, but I wanted to see this one more because I saw the rabbits scenes before, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
This movie though is hard to talk about in this. I think it's easily could be considered, I don't know, like I put in my review, I think Mulholland Drive is easily what I would call David Lynch's masterpiece, but I think this is David Lynch at his most almost like free. I mean, this is clearly his most experimental work.
I was about to say...
and they were kind of just doing whatever.
I've watched some of his more experimental short films, and I think if we're going like formal David Lynch, like, you're probably right, Mulholland Drive is probably going to be his best one. I haven't seen it yet. But if we're going experimental David Lynch, I can't see any of them topping this, you know?
Somehow this movie stays consistently engaging for 3 hours of stuff that is hard to follow.
Right.
It stays consistently creepy and at some points straight up terrifying.
It's so scary. This is one of the scariest movies I've watched in a while.
I was like, at first, for the first hour, I was like, why is this qualified as a horror movie? This is stupid. And then for like the next 2 hours, I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh no, man.
It's very, very like sufficiently disturbing and creepy and fun, and it has so much you can grab from it, so many different themes, and I think almost any of the different themes and ideas that people have grabbed from it are completely justified, which I think is honestly the sign that this movie is doing exactly what it needs to.
I was about to say, that's the sign, in my mind anyway, that's the sign of a good experimental film, is that you can have like, I don't know, like 5 different readings of it, and they all seem equally valid.
Yeah, especially from one this sprawling.
There's a lot here.
I mean, Laura Dern is amazing in this. Oh my gosh,
this is easily the best I've seen her in anything. I can't honestly imagine a better role for her than this. Right. She's so good.
I mean, again, the whole marketing for this was just, it's Laura Dern.
It's Laura Dern.
So, you know, what are you going to, I mean, because what else were you going to market it on?
Right.
But yeah, genuinely, probably a perfect movie. I can't think of pretty much anything I would change for it. I also desperately need the Criterion for this, so I can watch it anytime in beautifulness.
It's gonna look so good, man. I love it,
dude. I loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5 out of 5. It's easily my favorite Lynch project that I've seen.
Mulholland Drive is still better. Then on the 7th, we headed out to the theater again.
Once more.
This was I around this time, I purchased for the first time ever for this month, AMC A-List.
AMC
So now
A-List.
I can go see the movies.
Gotta flex the wealth, baby.
Not really. Again, it literally is just if you went to 2 movies a month, you're pretty much paying for it. John Wick Chapter 4 is what we went and saw.
John Wick Chapter 4.
Which I had a lot of anticipation for because I absolutely loved Parabellum. That was probably my favorite.
We talked about Parabellum on here, man. It's so good.
A lot of people who were watching it at first anyway, and I mean still a lot of people who I follow were like, this is easily the best one. 5 stars, 5 stars, 4.5, 5, 4.5. Like that was what was coming out for this.
Right.
And it was good. It was solid. I think honestly it's easily my least favorite of the series.
I still think I would watch it over the first one. I'm just not as big on the first one as you are.
And I think the biggest problem I have with this movie is it's just too long. And I like long movies.
It is too long.
We just were praising to no end Inland Empire. That's a 3-hour movie. You know, we can go for the long movies. This is also pretty much a 3-hour movie. And it just doesn't have anything
too much.
It doesn't have anything to do for John for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And a lot of its different plot threads mean nothing. They go nowhere. Like literally, there's the entire character of Mr. Nobody is just the most pointless character in the world. He doesn't really add much thematically, and he literally affects the plot 0% except for occasionally saving John and like annoying the main villain.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of weird elements here that I don't really think work or service the movie that well, but I do really like a lot of the action in this.
I was about to say, on the other hand, this is one of the most, like, I think it's got some of the best action of the series.
Yeah, probably.
The shotgun, incendiary shotgun fight scene, again, is literally just probably the greatest gun fight scene I've ever seen in a movie.
I think it's easily my favorite sequence in any John Wick movie, probably in any action movie, dude. It's so good.
It is crazy, and the way they shot it, you feel like you're transcending.
Dude, the staircase sequence is a lot of fun. There's a lot of good stuff, especially in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah,
or so.
and it was fun seeing this in a theater. In fact, on the staircase scene, every time John would like roll back down the staircase, the theater, like the entire theater, was like, no, which was really fun. But it's just too much. It's too long. You could cut this down an hour and it would be so much better. Like, it would probably be one of my favorites of the series if you cut an hour from this.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I really like Donnie Yen in this too. Worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I liked the performances. Even Mr. Nobody, for as much as I think he's a pointless character, I loved like the performance.
Yeah,
he's fun, but like, he has nothing to do here. Neither does John. John has nothing to do. It's just kind of lame.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. I enjoyed it quite a bit still.
No, I still enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5. It's just, it makes me a little sad because that's theoretically, from what I've heard, might probably be the last
like the
John
ending
Wick
of the series.
movie.
Yeah. Except for the spinoffs and everything.
Yeah, except for any spinoffs that they choose to do.
But yeah, I ended up giving it a 4. I thought it was pretty great, but there were just a few things that held me back from like fully loving it, like I did Parabellum.
Yeah, Parabellum is still easily my favorite of the series.
Yeah.
Then on the 8th, I watched the entire thing except for 2 episodes, which I'd watched the night prior, of Beef. A24 Netflix original series with Steven Yeun and Ali Wong.
There it is. It's Beef.
It's Beef. I thought I had no idea what to expect from this because I only watched it really because Steven Yeun was in it. And like, from the aesthetics anyway, from like the trailers and all of the marketing I had seen for it, I assumed it was going to be like a goofy comedy. And there certainly is a lot of comedy in the show, but it's much more of like an emotional drama than I thought it would be. But like, in fact, I think the emotional stuff is really, really good. It touches on a lot of topics that are pretty personal for me. I think the characters, especially the 2 leads, are just infinitely interesting. Like, because they could be so flat easily, but they do so much to really, really flesh out the characters. Like, there are several scenes with Steven Yeun that are just like straight up tragic. And in fact, the entire story, which I did not realize would be, is extremely tragic to watch play out. I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh. But it still does a pretty decent job of like combining its different genres and tones to create not too dark or like sad of an experience to watch. There's quite a bit of comedy, and I think the leads really sell it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, and I think the ending is a little ham-fisted, but it is a very, very cool TV show.
Should have been a movie.
It should have been a movie. It's really not that long. They could have cut it down.
Gavin, one of my friends who I met on Twitter, he runs a little YouTube channel called Primary Cinema. Very good. You should go check it out. But he was also talking about after he finished Beef, how it should have probably just been a movie.
Yeah, it should have just been a movie. One of the only other problems I have with it is that it's just a little too long in certain places. Like, not even like dragging on, but it just feels like there's not really much going on for a couple episodes.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I gave the show overall a 4 out of 5.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I am not usually a limited series TV show kind of guy, but I think I'm going to give Beef a try. It seems interesting.
Then later on the 8th, what did we watch?
We watched John Mulaney, Kid Gorgeous at Radio City.
So very, very good.
Very long title. I usually just call it Kid Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a John Mulaney stand-up special. Probably his most iconic of like the that series of specials.
That and New in Town both, though, have very strong cultural holds.
That's true.
On white people.
I was about to say, I see people talking about, like, and referencing Kid Gorgeous a lot in my day-to-day existence. Yeah. So
I love Kid Gorgeous.
And I mean, they're right to do so.
It's so funny. I mean, we've talked about that. There's not too much to say about the comedy special.
It's just so funny.
It's got some of my favorite bits from him and some of my favorite stand-up bits in general of all time.
I mean, he's got such a mastery of his delivery, and that's especially apparent in this one to me.
Yeah, even more so than New in Town, I would say. This is really benefited by his performances.
He does a bit more physical, like he's a bit more physical in this one than he is in New in Town,
and
too.
And does a little bit more, like he does more voice work in this than he does in New in Town. So
I very marginally prefer Kid Gorgeous to New in Town, but it's so close.
But yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5.
Then last night, headed out.
We're almost there, guys. We're almost there.
Right, this is like half the podcast. But last night we headed out to the theater again. It was after a long day of work, and I felt pretty miserable. So I was like, you know what? I want to go see a movie in theaters. And I have AMC A-list.
Something light, Micah.
So I could do it. Something light, like Air.
Like Air.
But yeah, we went and saw Air.
We saw Air.
Ben Affleck.
The new Ben Affleck movie. He directed it, baby. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think actually Ryan
Lee,
he, like, the stuff he talked about in his review I did not quite know, but it makes a lot of sense for having seen the movie. That really the entire movie is kind of an ad for Ben Affleck's like style he will be using for his new production company.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense, because I was about to say one of the weirdest things about this Air Jordan like biopic is that it seems to, by the end, not really like show you much of the success of Michael Jordan and the Air Jordans.
I think that's kind of funny. I don't know. I kind of laughed when it popped up the like start of the end text thing.
I really thought there would be like just like a montage showing us like highlights from how insane, because I mean it's Michael Jordan. He literally changed the basketball world forever. And Air Jordans, which are like some of the biggest shoes ever. So like, come on, guys. But again,
it's a fun movie.
It's very fun. I enjoy this genre a lot. This little subgenre of like biopic about company team doing something.
I referred to it as the true small success story subgenre. Again, like Moneyball.
Yeah, like Moneyball, Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
This is not quite as good as either of those, but it is fun. A lot of fun.
It's fun, and it was very refreshing and cool to see in a theater, you know?
Good ensemble.
It's probably not one I would go to watch again, but, you know, it was fun. I'm glad I watched it.
If someone turned it on, I would not be upset.
Exactly. I give it a 3.5.
I ended up going for the 4. I don't
think it was a 3, Mr. No Half Stars.
I was about to say, it's not a 3. I ended up giving it a 4, so...
And then even later into the night, we watched Zootopia. In preparation for this very podcast.
First rewatch in a long while.
That is running into your ears right now.
Whoa. Now it's
we just rewatched Kid Gorgeous.
Kid Gorgeous, it's true.
But anyway.
That was what we watched.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Watched a lot of really good movies.
We did. Oh man, Inland Empire I think is the biggest one here.
Yeah, I was about to say
when it comes to first washes.
I was about to say for suggesting though, I wouldn't suggest Inland Empire or Mishima unless you have looked into what's in them and are okay with what's in them.
Please check the content in both of those.
They are both rated R movies.
They are rated R.
So take that with a grain of salt. Same with Until the End of the World, which is another one of my favorites. 21 Jump Street. And 21 Jump Street.
Go watch Men in Black.
Go watch Before Sunrise. It's still technically rated R, but like for like saying the F word like 3 times. Yeah. So I would very much suggest Before Sunrise.
If you're looking for a 2023 release to hit up, Air's good, Rye Lane I loved, and Dungeons and Dragons is very good.
Go watch Dungeons and Dragons in theater. I would love to see that continue to do well, because after the Mario movie came out, it's dropped significantly because it was doing well in theaters, and the Mario movie came out and I think it dropped like 60% of its viewership.
Because I mean the audience who's going to go see Mario movie is pretty much the same.
Yeah, and I was about to say also go check out Beef, but only if you're again okay with what's in it content wise.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we watched. That's also what we thought of Zootopia. Thank you for listening to surprisingly one of our longer episodes.
It's funny too, because this was like our quote-unquote Easter episode, and this was suggested to us just because Judy is a bunny.
Dude,
so happy Easter.
I did not notice, watching through this time, I had not noticed before how much her nose twitches in reaction to stuff. It's so funny. Good stuff.
Happy Easter, happy Passover.
Yeah.
Happy. Why did I just lose the name of the other one? That was the same day of Easter.
I am not sure. I'm not as cultured of a person as you are.
Wow.
I did not remember.
I'm pretty sure it was a Muslim religious holiday.
Is Ramadan? Right,
yeah, I think it was Ramadan.
Oh,
maybe. Don't quote me on that.
I think
that fell on the same day as Easter this year.
You might be right.
So yeah. Shout out to religious holidays recently.
April's a pretty full month.
They're popping off.
There you go.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Catch you next week.